dementia, connecting our lives to help us survive. So we spend our time to the fullest we can.
Hi, welcome to Professional Insights, created by Dementia Action Alliance. I'm proud to be your host, Laurie Scher. During our Professional Insights podcast, we have educational conversations with professionals in the dementia community to provide answers and support to people living with dementia and care partners. My guest today is Dr. Al Power. Dr. Power is a board-certified internist and geriatrician and Schlegel Chair in Aging and Dementia Innovation, Schlegel UW Research Institute for Aging in Waterloo, Ontario. He is a trainer, an author, and a great musician. Our topic today is apathy and despondency. Al, thank you for joining us.
Well, thanks, Laurie. It's always a pleasure to be here.
It's great to have you again. Al, tell me, apathy and despondency, how are they related to each other, and how are they related to people living with dementia?
I'll give you my thoughts about that. I think that both apathy and despondency, they could both be felt internally or they could both be expressed visibly to others. But I tend to think of them myself as despondency being mainly an internal feeling, apathy being something that other people might observe too, even though you certainly can feel it. So despondency is a very painful condition. I think we'd call that a kind of suffering. People who are despondent have lost hope. They've lost a sense of positivity. They're really hurting and not feeling like there's much to look forward to. These are people that we want to identify and people that need our help in many different ways, whether it be a professional or support network. Apathy is a little bit different. It certainly intersects with despondency. Apathy are people that just appear to have a sort of a flattened emotional response. They may appear to be not interested or not engaged, not particularly joyful or wanting to participate in things. And apathy can go with despondency. It can suggest someone who, for instance, may be very depressed. But it doesn't always mean that. There are other conditions that can cause a person to look or feel apathetic. And not everybody who looks like they have apathy necessarily needs help. And so that's why it's very important if you see someone who appears to have some apathy, some flattened emotions, to try to figure out whether they have one of those conditions that's painful and needs help, or whether that's just something that we're seeing that isn't necessarily fixable or something that is needed to be fixed. So depression certainly can cause apathy. That is one of the signs of depression. We have another word in medicine we call anhedonia, which is the lack of getting pleasure from anything, whether it be food or relationships or activities or whatever. So when you see somebody who looks like they have apathy, you want to find out if they're despondent. You want to find out if they're depressed. And there are ways that we can screen people for depression. But there are other conditions that make a person look like they have apathy that are not necessarily depression. And some of those we also see with dementia. Certainly clinical depression happens with a lot of people with dementia, depression that may need to be treated. But certain kinds of dementia can actually cause people to look like they have apathy, even though they may not be feeling depressed. Particularly dementias that can affect the frontal lobe of the brain, where a lot of emotions are regulated. And all of the Parkinson type syndromes, even Parkinson's without dementia, one of the hallmarks of Parkinson's and Parkinson-like syndromes is people get kind of a flat, expressionless face and a voice that becomes less modulated and much more of a monotone and slower speech. So it may sound like somebody's depressed, but those are really just neurologic changes. They don't mean the person is sad or that the person needs some medication. So I think it's important. I've often had this question in caring for people with a diagnosis of dementia. When you see somebody who looks like they have apathy, and the big question is, do they have depression or not? And you can talk to people, you can test people. Sometimes you actually need to just give somebody an antidepressant for a month or two and see if it makes a difference, because you're just not sure, especially if people have very severe cognitive communication difficulties. And you may just have to observe trial and error and say, okay, it didn't work. It's probably not depression. But that's sort of the difference between them. And that's why I think it's important to sort it out because some types do need treatment, others maybe not so much.
Oh, thank you. That's a lot of information, very
Yeah,
beneficial information. Well, many of us dealing with dementia deal with the challenge of feeling like we're fading into emptiness. And sometimes, even getting out of bed seems so overwhelming. How can we turn these feelings around?
yeah. And I think what you're referring to here really is more in that despondency category. This is an internal feeling. It's one that's not a happy feeling. It's suffering in a way. It's painful. You don't want to be there. You'd like to be in a better place. So clearly, whether you're showing apathy or not, this is a person who is trying and is having difficulty. And I think there are a couple of things. And we see this not just with people living with dementia. We do see it with clinical depression. We see it with people with severe anxiety disorders, many conditions, some neurologic conditions that take away your energy level, chronic fatigue syndrome, where you just can't seem to get moving, particularly in the morning when a lot of these symptoms are worse. And the first thing, I guess, is to remind people to just take baby steps. I think it's when you think too far ahead, you become overwhelmed by all the things that you could be doing or that you should be doing. And sometimes you just have to put one thing on your list and see if you can tick it off in the next few minutes or next few hours or sometime that day. And if you can, then you can think about something else. But that's sort of one step at a time or one day at a time philosophy, I think works really well for this. We are so focused on the future, so focused on our list of tasks that it can quickly overwhelm us when the energy and ability is not there. The other thing I would say is, especially with social media and all the things we read, and obviously we want to understand the importance of living positively with dementia. But we also read about other people living with the same condition as us. And some of them may seem like dementia superheroes. They're out traveling around, they're giving lectures, they're writing books, and that's great. I think it's wonderful that people do that, but I think we cannot fall victim to putting ourselves at the same expectation of others. We have to understand what our limitations are and what our abilities are on a given day. And even the people, I know a lot of people who are out there traveling the world, and they will tell you that there are some days when they can't get out of bed too. So it's very much a variable thing. I'm sure you can speak to
I
that,
will
Laura.
agree with that. Absolutely. There's some days that I feel like I can do most anything. And there's other days that I need to practice what you said, one step in front of the other. Okay, do this, then do that, and walk through my day. So it's you learn to live in the moment on those days and just one step at a time. It's hard. It is hard.
We're in a multimedia world that's asking us to multitask all the time, and that's hard to do. It's hard to do for anybody. I certainly find getting older that if I was just saying to a friend of mine on the phone a few minutes ago that she was talking about a couple of podcasts she listened to, and I said, if I'm trying to do anything else and I try to listen to a podcast, 10 minutes go by and I realized I didn't hear a word they said because I was focused on what I was doing. And sometimes, even in my situation, when I have a lot of different projects, I just have to say, okay, do this one, forget the others, do this one, and then check it off and think about what you want to do next, because I think we have to force ourselves to slow down that way. I might mention that this is kind of the internal advice for people, but if you're living with dementia, the people that support you, either personally or professionally, they can help with that too, if they understand some things. The most important thing, first of all, is good communication skills, so that when you're struggling, people can talk to you about it, can find out what you feel, what you need, how they can help. And also understanding some things about dementia, that dementia does affect your ability to initiate activities. It can affect your executive function, your ability to plan or problem solve. That might make it might not be so much that you don't have the motivation, but you're not quite sure what to do next. And a little bit of cueing, not taking over for the person, but a little bit of cueing can help a person get started when they're having trouble. And I think that the last thing is the procedural difficulties too, just reminding people what comes first and what comes second. So I think the care partners can also be very supportive when people are having trouble getting started. It's not all on you. A supportive environment can be very helpful too.
I have kind of like my recipe of life.
Yeah.
It's like following a recipe, and I check off things as I go down. I have my daily recipe so that on the days that I'm more challenged than others, I can at least check off each of the tasks to make sure that I'm scrubbing my teeth and doing my hair, which I did today. It was a good day.
You did better than me.
Yeah, so that's really good information, and it is true. We have to look at everybody living with dementia does not have the same abilities or the same disabilities, and it's important that we realize that they may have different challenges than we do, but then also coming up with strategies for how you take care of that is important. So thank you. And one more question for you.
Yeah.
Do you have any other suggestions that maybe we didn't talk about on steps we can take to avoid despondency and apathy from controlling our lives?
Yeah, it's a great question. We want to be proactive in living with any condition. We want to be proactive and try to head off problems. And I think just this idea of the positivity and the communication that we talked about is so really important. But I don't want to sound like I'm so smart that I'm saying this off the top of my head. I did have Lori's question ahead of time, and I did write down 5 bullet points, 5 things that to me would help me feel more connected and engaged when I'm perhaps falling prey to despondency. And they may not be the only ones, but they're the first 5 that came to my mind. So the first one is doing something that is meaningful, purposeful. So not just being busy, but something where you're helping others or where you're getting a sense of purpose in what you do. I think that's the reason we all get out of bed in the morning, is to have a purpose in our lives. The second one is to continue to be engaged in relationships. So it may be a loved one at home, it may be neighbors, it may be friends, it may be on Zoom if that's all you can do today. But just staying in social contact helps you get outside yourself, as does the meaningful work to start thinking about what you have still to offer to people around you. The third one I have is stimulating the 5 senses. Do things that feel good, that smell good, that taste good. That can include music, which is my fourth bullet point, but it could be art or any kind of creative engagement. And nature is another great way. Getting in nature and just letting nature kind of heal you by bathing in that. And I think the last one, now I have to look at my terrible handwriting. Oh yeah, forgiveness. Forgiveness. We have to be easy on ourselves. Because I think part of our inertia is because we're just beating ourselves up at being incapable. And just like society has stigmas, we inhabit those own stigmas, and we embrace them ourselves about ourselves being broken and incapable. And yeah, we're not the way we were 10 years ago, but we have to forgive ourselves and kind of go with what we got.
Well, thank you. Thank you so much for joining us today to share information about apathy and despondency. I've had the pleasure of knowing you for, I think, 7 years now.
At least, yeah.
Which is just totally shocking. And I know you've helped me many, many times. So I appreciate your support, and certainly DAA appreciates your support and always willingness to help us. So thank you for being here today.
Well, thank you. It's a great topic, I think, and I'm glad that you engaged me to think about it. I hope this is helpful, and we'll be happy to see what the callers have to say too.
Well, thank you. And you know what? I also want to thank you, our audience, for joining DAA for this Professional Insights podcast. Please visit our website, daanow.org, to view other podcasts, find valuable resources, and find ways to connect with other people living with dementia through our virtual discussions and engagement programs. Dementia Action Alliance is committed to enhancing lives, connecting people, and increasing understanding. Thank you for being with us today. Have a great day.